Welcome back to the channel. So today I want to share how one of my classmates in pharmacy school was able to pay off $200,000 of student debt using real estate. I wish I knew about this, 10 years ago, and I definitely would have suggested my parents use the same strategy. So let's dive right into it. So in pharmacy school, I graduated back in 2013, but pharmacy school loans was roughly around $200,000. Believe it or not. It was a 3-year program, accelerated. So that averaged, what is that? $70,000 a year. So one of my classmates, he was very fortunate that his parents were more affluent. I grew up in I'd say middle to upper middle class family. So we probably could have maybe done the same strategy, but we just weren't aware of it. But I think his family was a little more affluent. They lived in one of the nicer areas and cities in the Bay Area. And what they did was when my friend entered pharmacy school. So I'll just call my friend John. When my friend John was in pharmacy school, um, they actually bought a house. So they bought a house. Um, so John Pharmacy School. So basically, number one is they bought a house in Stockton, California. So Stockton, California. And this was so I started pharmacy school in 2012. So, no, sorry, that's incorrect. That's 2010, not 12. And what was 2010? That was when it was a recession, right? That's when the real estate market collapsed back in 2008, and it was pretty stagnant from 2008, 2009, 2010. And, given Stockton, isn't the greatest area, if I'm being honest here. So Stockton was hit the most. So I think at the time, um, they got a house for around, I want to say 100 to $150,000. And that's pretty insane, right? Like for reference, for those you don't know, Stockton is roughly about um, probably 90 minutes from Silicon Valley. And, their houses, I don't know how much they're worth in 2010, but let's just say maybe, I don't know, let's just say 600,000, just to give a frame of reference. So Stockton is 90 minutes away, and houses were about 1/6 to 1/5 of the cost. So, kind of back to the story, they bought a house in Stockton for 100 to $150,000. Since John was living in it, so John was living in it. You only do 10% down. So what's that? That's going to be 10 to 15K. And since John was a student, had no work history, his parents, um, you know, uh, co-signed on the loan. So basically, his parents, they work a W-2 job, typical upper middle class, and they basically downed, 10%. But let's just say, you can, because it's a primary residence, you can 10%. But if you want to be more aggressive, you can do 20% down. So that would be 20 to 30K, right? So overall, it's pretty nominal. And um, so I think at the time, if you down 10%, um, let me calculate how much his payments were. So let me kind of get out my calculator here. So let's just say you have 9% loan. So let's just make it very simple. Let's just do 100,000. So you had a 90K loan, 30-year AM, and let's just call it 5% interest. So let me calculate here real quick to see what that looks like. calculator. So I'm going to put in 90,000 and let's just put 5% interest. So his monthly payment, let's just call it $500. So his so the mortgage was, let's just say 500, right? And so that's the mortgage. So that's not all your only cost. So you have property tax, insurance. So let's just make it very simple here. Let's just make it make that 500 as well. And then you got utilities, and then let's just say maintenance. That's another 500. So your all in cost is $1,500 a month. And he had a 4-bedroom house. So it's 4-bed. And then John lived in the master. And then he rented out the 3 other bedrooms for about, I think it was $400 to $500 each. Let's just make this very simple. So he basically rented out the 3 other bedrooms to our classmates for $500 each. So you got 500 times 3, that's $1,500. And this is where the magic happens, right? So basically, John, he lived with the master. He essentially house hacked. And the 3 other roommates he collected $1,500 a month. And his total expense is $1,500 a month. So what does that mean? That John is living here for free. So he pays $0. He's living there for completely free to live in that house, right? Versus me, I was renting an apartment with a roommate. Our rent was $1,000 for a 2-bedroom, 1 bath. So I paid $500, he paid $500. So 500 is kind of the rent that you pay. And this $500 include all utilities. So basically, John lived in there for free throughout pharmacy school. And we were in pharmacy school for 3 years. So from 2010 all the way to 2013, they bought the property for $100,000, and it was worth $300,000. I think it was like $350. Oh wait, no, let me take that back. I think they ended up holding onto the property a little bit longer than 13. We graduated 2013, but I think it was actually 2015 where it was sold. So in that 5-year window, the house appreciated. So after we graduated pharmacy school, they just rented out the 4-bedroom house. Obviously John was not there any longer, so let's just say they got $2,000 a month, and the expense was $1,500, so they were cash flowing $500 a month. But 2015 they sold it for $350. So since it was a primary residence, it's basically that's $250K profit. And since John lived in it for 3 years, so 3 years primary, there are some tax advantages, right, when you go to sell. So you don't have to pay tax on all this $250,000. I don't know the exact numbers, but just the concept. And then once they sold it in 2015, so you fast forward that, in 2015, we're pharmacists now, so RPH, making over 100,000. And what he did was, after he sold this property, they took the $250,000 profit and dumped it into our 200K student loans. So now that's paid off, right? This is paid off, and he basically had an extra 50,000 to use to buying his own house, to buy a primary. So once I learned this concept completely blew my mind. So let me kind of summarize it first, and then kind of add some additional things that they could have done on top of this with the knowledge I know today. So basically, pharmacy school, we went there. We had $200,000 of student debt. Um, him and his parents bought a house in Stockton, California in 2010. This is just after the real estate crash, after the bubble popped. So they got a house for about $100,000, and this is 90 minutes away from Silicon Valley, where houses averaged 600,000. So because John was going to live in it as a primary residence, you only need 10% down. So that's $10,000 to $15,000, and his parents had to co-sign him because he didn't have a job nor an income. So both his parents are still working, so they're on the loan, right? So here, the interest loan terms were 90K. If you do 10% down, 30-year AM, 5% interest. So your mortgage is going to be 500. Property tax insurance is 500, and let's just say utilities and maintenance is another 500. So you're all in for $1,500 a month, right? And since this was a 4-bedroom house, John lived in the master. He house hacked, so he rented out the 3 other bedrooms to 3 other students, and basically got $1,500 a month. So he broke even. He basically got to live in that house for free as the house built up equity. So something that the parents can do as well is they can actually pay John a salary as the owner. No, actually, let me take that back. Take that back because he's living as a primary. This does not apply. So basically, John got to live in this 4-bedroom house for free as it built up equity. He broke even, had a free place to live, and got to build equity. Versus people like me, I was just renting, so I was paying $600 a month, including utilities. So from 2010 to 2015, I believe he lived in that property because afterwards, I think he worked in Stockton afterwards. And the house appreciated from $100,000 to $350,000. So he basically made a 250K profit over 5 years. And since he lived in that property for over 2 years as a primary, you don't have to pay long-term capital gains tax on a certain amount. I'm not sure exactly what it is. I want to say it's 200,000 for some reason. But basically, he took that $250,000 profit to pay off $200,000 of student loans and had another $50,000 to buy a primary residence when he relocated back to the Bay Area. So this is crazy, right? Like he used that $50,000, and now that he had a pharmacist salary, high income W-2, he can now afford it. So this strategy, completely blew my mind, right? And it's kind of getting me thinking what I'm going to do for my future kids when they go to college. So what I would probably do is I want it down 10%, or worst case, if I didn't have the money, I would down 10%. But if I could, I want to down 25%, own this under an LLC as a rental property. And why I want to do that is because I want to have my future, son or daughter living in there. So same thing, right? I would buy a 4-bedroom house as an investment property with 25% down if I can afford it, 10% down if I couldn't, didn't have the money. And I would have my kid live in the master bedroom, house hack, rent out the 3 other bedrooms in hopes that it would reduce, pay down, the property tax, insurance, the mortgage, utilities, maintenance. So hopefully, if we're lucky, we break even, or if we're slightly negative, that's fine, as long as we can build equity. And then there, I would actually pay my future kid as a property manager, right? So if this property is owned as an LLC, I can pay, instead of giving, my kids an allowance, I can pay them 10% of the rents as a property manager, and then they can use that money to basically pay for the living expense and also get a W-2, right? They'll basically build a W-2 while they're in college, and they can help build up, they can get their own credit cards, start building up their credit score, so that when they graduate, they're already ahead of the curve, right? They would have been making a W-2 income, they would have built up a credit score, and they would have developed the skills and experience of managing 3 other tenants and renters, so that they can maybe eventually take over my real estate portfolio, which is a lot longer. So it's smart in multiple ways, right? So number one, it's smart in the sense of it's a way for them to get W-2 income, to get credit cards and build their credit score, but also teach them the skills of managing real estate, because eventually, they might have to inherit my real estate portfolio. And I'm currently at 90 units at 32, and who knows where I'll be in 20 years, right? It could be much larger. Um, I'm hoping it's much larger. So they need to be trained to basically take over, the real estate portfolio, the real estate empire, when I get older. So that's what's crazy right there. And then you can pay them, um, by paying them, you're arbitraging tax. I might be in a high tax bracket, right? Let's just say I'm in a higher tax bracket. If I pay my kid, they're going to be in a lot lower of a tax bracket, so they may not have to pay tax. I think the standard deduction was $6,000. So, if you kind of run through an example here, um, whatever, let's say I pay him 10% property management fee and he collects $60,000 in rent for the year. So 10% would be $6,000. He files his taxes and basically pays zero taxes, because based on the standard deduction of $6,000. So he basically gets $6,000 tax free to live in a house for a lot cheaper, and use that money to, invest or build your credit, or he can dump it into a Roth IRA, right? So you can put $6,000 into a Roth IRA, and then you're ahead of the curve, right? So that's kind of ways how you kind of pass on that generational wealth. So overall, just now that I thought about this story, 10 years later, it kind of hit me as to how genius of a move it was to basically use real estate equity to pay off student loans. And it just basically sets, my friend up to be very financially set and have a strong financial foundation, because it took me 4 years to pay off my student loans. And I know some people, 10 years later, they're still paying their student loans, right? So it really kind of relieves a burden to do that. And this is kind of a strategy that I learned to do that. So hopefully you found value from this video. Please like, comment, subscribe. If you want to learn more about investing in multifamily real estate, check out the link down below. Thank you so much, and hope to see you in the next one.